Hi everyone and welcome back. Welcome to my another video, and in this video we are going to build another full stack applications, and here we are using Next.js. So in my previous videos we have built movie applications, and then one application I built with a T3 stack which is a notes taking application, which was talking about how we are integrating Prisma, Next.auth, Next.js, TRPC and all. In the last video we talked about a simple movie app that is talking about the basic in-depth concepts about Next.js, how to create layouts, how to have a loading and error state, and then having these all different routes where we are loading a server components. Now in this video we are going to build another application, but here my stack and approach will be a little different. Here this is my MongoDB, and still we are using Prisma. So this is our Prisma layer, you can say. Okay, and we have the same set of components. If you talk about that, what all components we have, this is the Next.auth. Okay, and using Next.auth we are going to build a simple authentication. I hope now you already familiar with the Next.auth, because I have used Next.auth in many of my videos. So this is the whole stack, and what we are going to build is simple Next.js pages, server-side pages, which is going to interact with the Next.auth for the authentication. Next.auth will provide multiple options for the authentication, like you can also log in with a Github or log in with the credentials. So in the Prisma we will have this user table, which is going to allow you to create a user sign up, and then this Prisma is going to access this MongoDB, because Prisma can have the connections with the MongoDB. I struggled in setting up MongoDB because Prisma needs replica set enabled for the MongoDB. So if you're talking about the Postgres and MySQL, there is no issue. You can create a simple containers and you can connect to that. So while setting up the Docker container for the MongoDB, I need to enable the replica set. Then only this Prisma will allow you to connect to the MongoDB, because Prisma is using transactions internally, and for that it is asking us to have a replica set enabled in the MongoDB Docker container. So that is a little tricky part. Otherwise in the MongoDB we are going to have these collections like user collections and all, where a user blog post and all, where using this Next.js APIs we are going to, once you are authenticated, so what happens is once you are authenticated you should be able to access things, right? So let's say I am authenticated, I have my session, then you will just go, if your session exists, then it will allow you to access the API routes, and with the help of this API routes, so I'm just talking about Next.js API routes, and with the help of those API routes you should be able to make the call to the Prisma, and Prisma will do the read and write in the MongoDB. A same simple architecture, right? And we are not going to write much code here. In the last two videos we have done in-depth discussion about all those concepts, so I'm going to give you code walkthrough in this video. So let's do it together, and let's try to understand how you can fix this MongoDB connection in the Prisma ORM, so you don't face the same challenge. If you are watching this video, I'm going to give you the solution. So I also faced this problem. I have to have this another Docker Compose YML file. I will just rename it. This is my existing Docker Compose YML file. Okay, 01.yml, and this is my current. So what happens is, because we are using Prisma, and Prisma is actually an ORM that will help you to connect to any database, MongoDB, Postgres, MySQL, SQL or NoSQL database. Particularly with the NoSQL MongoDB database, you need to have a replica set enabled on the same host and port, and it will allow you to connect to this root user. Okay, and here is our blog applications. I have covered all the application in this monorepo. If you look into this code base, it's not new. If you are watching my playlists, so in these applications I put all this blog app. Okay, this blog app has this nice env file, and in this env we have put, this is the database URL. So what it is saying is, root is the username, root is the password, localhost 27017, database name anything, auth source equal to admin, because we are trying to log in into database using admin credentials. And then using Docker Compose YAML, that is important. It is spinning up the Docker container for us from the image, from the Docker file. And I found this solution on the Prisma documentation only, because people are struggling while connecting to the MongoDB locally using Docker container. So this was the final solution provided by this guy. I think this is something available from the Prisma only, Prisma docs. So this is what you need to put in the Docker Compose, replica set host, init username password, create your Docker file. So this is Docker, because Docker image, MongoDB image we are going to build from this Docker file, and this Docker file is using Mongo 4, and then it is just initializing these replica set and registering this host, replica host on the replica set, and then it is also creating user with this admin user, admin password, and with the role root, so that on that replica set enabled MongoDB we should be able to log in with the root credentials. Okay, that is the thing which this Docker file is doing. And when you do Docker Compose up, so you will do Docker Compose up then, and then this will become your URL that you are going to put in your env file. So that is the final solution. I also spent some time in setting up the replica set, because Prisma won't allow you without replica set in the MongoDB case, in case of MongoDB. So enable the replica set. So you just need these files: Docker Compose YAML, the Docker file, and obviously Docker Compose up. Once the container is up, you can just use this URL to connect to the database. Okay, MongoDB, username root, password root, localhost 27017 is the port, database name, and auth source is admin. Because I have seen a lot of people are facing this issue. They are either connecting to the remote Docker instance. If you want to set up this locally, then this is the right way of doing it. And I also have that same in the code. If you see, I have this Docker file somewhere. This is my Docker file, and this is my Docker Compose YAML. And when I did Docker Compose up, it was able to create the container for me, because earlier I was facing this issue. You might have seen this if you read the message: connection failure, unable to find the dedicated server with the replica set and all. This is talking about the same issue. You will get the big message coming. You can see this unknown server selection timeout. This is the error which you will receive, and you will get mad if you're not able to solve it. So I'm just giving you the right away direct solution. If you are using MongoDB, so we have used SQLite, we have used Postgres, now we are using MongoDB, because I wanted to talk about each and every different flavor of different database. Now if you are using MongoDB, then the provider will be different in the Prisma schema file, that you always need to remember. So inside application blogs, we have this Prisma schema. So here you can see my provider is a MongoDB, and inside my models, I will be using object IDs, because we are talking about NoSQL, and without doing much changes, you should be able to create your models. This is the user model, and this is the listing model. So this is like a blogs or blog application where you are providing the reference to the user, right? So here you are attaching a relationship user, relations with the user ID, which is a column, which is an object ID. Okay, reference to the ID on delete cascade. Okay, and this is the user table, which is default auto implemented map is underscore ID. This is the object ID. So same thing, either you use a Postgres or you use a MongoDB. These systems and these schema models works in the same way. Okay, so this is how we are doing it. Now what we are doing, it's a simple blog application I will be talking about, which is using this Next.js for the authentication, and it contains some API routes to create blog, update blog, create user, update user, because we are also going to have a create user, right? Because if you talk about the Next.js, using Next.js you can log in with existing social providers, like login with a Google, GitHub, but it also allows you to log in with the username password, where you can allow user to register first and then log in. Okay, So our MongoDB container is up and running. That is one of the good thing. And now I don't see these issues. I'm running somewhere here. Okay. Now how should we look into the code? If you look in, this is the Next.js 13 app, and this is the Prisma schema. You don't need to run the migrations and all because this is a NoSQL. Populate all the environment variables, next.secret, next.url, all these things, and then app directory. Here I'm going to talk about the APIs first and next.auth. Inside next.auth you can see I have route. So here is my next.auth options. We can see callback session. So still I'm using a JWT strategy. I'm not saving my session on the database. I'm still using this Prisma adapter, but my session is not being stored on the database. We are just generating the token using this JWT strategy, and that token is being used as a cookies at the client side to manage the session. This is the next.auth secret, and here is the providers. We can also log in with the GitHub, or this is the credential provider. That means I'm using username password based authentication, and it contains this authorize function which is doing same thing. Here we are just doing a find one unique, creating the hash password, comparing with the hash password, and if it is everything good, return the user. Same thing with the register, because register is another route where we are creating a hash password and creating the user in the database. I'm not typing the code, I'm not explaining each and every aspect because I have covered these things many times in my previous videos. It is all about, if you look into any of my previous videos which talks about next.auth, we are already doing it, the credential provider and the social providers. This is a simple next.auth routes which covers almost everything. Okay, all the authentication options, providers, callbacks, and all. And here our additional APIs like blogs, because I'm going to write blogs. So here you can see, first of all we need to get the current user, and if you're creating a blog, so you will get a name and descriptions from the body, and then you will just create a listing and pass the user ID. So here we are using Prisma, right? Prisma is actually a ORM for the MongoDB, and we can say we are not maintaining any Mongoose model and all, which we used to do with the Node.js. Prisma is making things simpler when you connect to any database, SQL or NoSQL. And similarly, we are just doing Prisma.model.create. So it is providing a unified methods. Create is same method we are using, either you use Postgres, MySQL or MongoDB. Right, so here we are creating a blog. Similarly, blog ID, here we are like updating, deleting, or fetching that particular blog based on the blog ID which we are getting in params blog ID. So we got the current user, we are checking blog exists, then return it. Updating the blog ID with the new data, so we got the data using request.json. Here if the current user is not there, just return the error. We got the blog ID, that should be of type string, and here we are updating using simple Prisma query. Update where ID equal to blog ID and data is this. So update that particular record in the MongoDB with this data where the ID is blog ID. Simple, right? So similarly register and all, and then you can just create these pages. This is all about Prisma.db, how we are creating a Prisma.db client, and we have some pages like login and register. Right, here we have just a simple form, username, password, and when you are submitting the form, we are doing the same thing. Here we are using credential provider because you are passing username, password, and on the callback, if everything is okay, we will just refresh the page and we will show the user session created, and we are just using this router and also like basic form which you can just write using HTML form and then add these handlers. And when you do a submit, this is what we are doing on submit. We are using credential provider. Sign in is coming from next.auth. Redirect false because we are going to stay on the same page once you are logged in. Similarly, register. Here we are doing on submit, and we are hitting actually a Next.js API routes. API register, and we are passing the whole payload. Payload contains like email, username, password, and once you are done, just refresh the route. And this is how we are capturing the values from the form. It's like simple example. So this is how you build the end-to-end applications. Here my more objective is how this next auth works and how we can use Prisma to connect to a different data source. Either it is a Postgres, MySQL. You just need to manage the schema file, put your models like listing model, user model, and then provide your data source and keep your data source up and running through the Docker container or some other remote URL. So you should be able to connect to the simple connection connected to the database, and then you can access the APIs. Okay, I mean, this is a simple blog implementation where you can just easily write the APIs. We are not going into the demo example and all. It's all about showcasing. The code is there. If you want to hands-on and practice how this Prisma is connecting to the MongoDB and how this whole next auth is working end to end, then you can just explore this code further.